In the heart of a vibrant city, where dreams are as tall as the skyscrapers that pierce the sky, lived two young men, Samuel and Kelvin. They were brothers in spirit, bound by shared aspirations and a fierce determination to carve their names into the story of this land. They worked side by side in a modern office building, a symbol of progress against the backdrop of ancient traditions. Their days were filled with the hum of computers, the murmur of meetings, and the whispered hopes of a better future, a future they often dreamt of building beyond these familiar shores. Samuel, with his gentle demeanor and unwavering work ethic, and Kelvin, charismatic and quick-witted, were an inseparable pair. They bounced ideas off each other, celebrated small victories together, and comforted each other during setbacks. Their bond seemed unbreakable, forged in the fires of shared ambition. Little did they know that fate, with a cruel twist of irony, would test the very foundation of their brotherhood, leading them down a path of deception and ultimate tragedy. Their dreams often revolved around opportunities abroad, the allure of new experiences, higher salaries, and a chance to make a name for themselves on a global stage. They spent countless lunch breaks poring over job listings, sharing success stories of those who had made the leap, and encouraging each other to keep striving. They envisioned themselves as pioneers, blazing a trail for others from their community to follow. The city itself seemed to whisper promises of prosperity, but Samuel and Kelvin yearned for something more, something beyond the familiar rhythms of their daily lives. They pushed each other, fueled each other's desires, unaware that their ambitions, so alike on the surface, harbored seeds of envy and competition. Then, one fateful day, Kelvin burst into Samuel's cubicle, his face radiant with excitement. "I got it, Samuel. I got the job overseas." The news rippled through the office like wildfire. Colleagues gathered around, offering congratulations, handshakes, and pats on the back. Kelvin was the star of the moment, his dream realized. Samuel, genuinely happy for his friend, joined in the celebration, raising a glass of juice in a toast. The atmosphere was electric, filled with hope and possibility. Yet, beneath the surface of Kelvin's jubilation lay a secret, a carefully concealed detail that would irrevocably alter the course of their friendship. Kelvin, fueled by a desperate desire to escape their current circumstances, had stretched the truth. It wasn't a job that was taking him abroad, but a visit visa, a temporary ticket to a world he desperately wanted to claim as his own. He sold everything he owned, his car, his furniture, even some of his treasured possessions, to fund the trip. His family, filled with both excitement and trepidation, packed their bags, ready to embark on this new adventure. They trusted Kelvin implicitly, believing in his ability to provide them with a better life. With promises to send pictures and updates, Kelvin and his family bid farewell to their friends and relatives, leaving behind the familiar comforts of home. Samuel stood at the departure gate, waving goodbye as Kelvin and his family disappeared down the jetway. He felt a pang of envy, but it was quickly overshadowed by genuine happiness for his friend. He envisioned Kelvin thriving in his new environment, sending back stories of success and inspiration. He looked forward to the day when he, too, would have his chance to pursue his dreams abroad. The city skyline seemed to shrink as the plane ascended, carrying Kelvin further and further away. Little did Samuel know that this farewell was not a celebration of success, but the beginning of a carefully constructed illusion. For 3 long months, silence descended. Samuel continued his work, diligently saving money and applying for opportunities abroad. He missed Kelvin's companionship, but he understood the need for his friend to settle into his new life. Then, the photos began trickling in. Pictures of Kelvin and his family posing in front of iconic landmarks, the Eiffel Tower, the Statue of Liberty, the Great Wall of China. Their smiling faces seemed to radiate happiness and prosperity. Kelvin painted a picture of a life of luxury, fancy cars, spacious apartments, and exotic vacations. Samuel marveled at his friend's success, using the images as fuel to keep his own dreams alive. He shared the photos with their colleagues, further solidifying the perception that Kelvin had indeed made it. 6 months later, Samuel received the news he had been waiting for. He had landed a job in another country, a real job, with a legitimate contract and a promising future. Overwhelmed with joy, he immediately reached for his phone to share the good news with Kelvin. "Kelvin," he said, barely containing his excitement, "I got a job overseas." He expected his friend to be ecstatic, to celebrate his success as he had celebrated Kelvin's. But Kelvin didn't believe him. The carefully constructed facade of his own success had blinded him. He saw Samuel's news as an attempt to one-up him, a desperate bid for attention. The seeds of envy, long dormant, began to sprout and take root. He couldn't fathom that Samuel had genuinely succeeded, that he, too, was on the verge of realizing his dreams. "That's great, Samuel," Kelvin said, his voice laced with feigned enthusiasm, but his heart heavy with resentment. The bond between them, once so strong, began to fray under the weight of deception and mistrust. Time passed, and the stark contrast between their lives became increasingly apparent. Samuel's career flourished abroad. He excelled in his role, earning promotions, accolades, and the respect of his colleagues. He traveled the world, experiencing new cultures and expanding his horizons. He was living the dream they had both envisioned. Meanwhile, Kelvin's carefully constructed illusion began to crumble. The reality of his visit visa hit hard when it expired. He struggled to find legitimate work, his savings dwindled, and the threat of deportation loomed large. He and his family were living on borrowed time, their dreams slowly turning into nightmares. The inevitable happened. Kelvin and his family were deported, stripped of their illusions and forced to return to the city they had left behind with such high hopes. The shame was unbearable. He couldn't face his old friends and colleagues, knowing that they believed he was thriving overseas. He had spun a web of lies so intricate that he couldn't untangle it. Desperate and defeated, he finally confided the truth to Samuel, swallowing his pride and admitting his failure. Moved by compassion, Samuel offered a lifeline. He understood the desperation that had driven Kelvin to lie, and he couldn't bear to see his friend suffer. "Stay in my house outside the city," he said. "It's empty. Use it until you can get back on your feet." He selflessly offered his own property, providing Kelvin and his family with a safe haven, a place to rebuild their lives away from the judgmental eyes of the city. Kelvin accepted gratefully. He and his family moved into the house, humbled by Samuel's generosity. They started rebuilding their lives, slowly but surely. Kelvin found odd jobs, working tirelessly to provide for his family. He was determined to redeem himself, to prove that he was worthy of Samuel's trust. The house became a sanctuary, a place of healing and renewal. For a time, it seemed as though their friendship might be salvaged, that the bond between them could be rekindled. 2 years later, Samuel called again. "Kelvin," he said, "I'm building a house back home, but I don't want my family to know. Can you oversee the construction for me?" He trusted Kelvin implicitly, believing that their friendship had been restored. He needed someone reliable, someone he could count on, to manage the project in his absence. Kelvin agreed without hesitation. This was his chance to repay Samuel's kindness, to prove that he was no longer the deceitful and envious man he once was. He threw himself into the project, meticulously overseeing every detail, ensuring that the house was built to Samuel's exact specifications. He saw this as an opportunity to not only help his friend but also to demonstrate his own capabilities, to show the world that he was capable of great things. Months later, Samuel's house was complete, a grand mansion in the heart of the city, a testament to his hard work and success. It was a symbol of everything Kelvin had once envied, a tangible representation of Samuel's achievements. But this time, instead of resentment, Kelvin felt a sense of pride, knowing that he had played a part in bringing Samuel's vision to life. The mansion stood as a beacon of hope, a promise of a brighter future for Samuel and his family. One evening, Samuel called Kelvin with another offer. "You can move into the boys' quarters of the mansion," he said. "It'll be more convenient for your business." He was extending his generosity once again, providing Kelvin with a place to live and work, a chance to further rebuild his life. Kelvin hesitated. To his wife and children, he had painted a picture of redemption, a narrative where the mansion wasn't Samuel's, but theirs, a testament to his hard work and God's blessings. Moving to the boys' quarters would expose his lies, shattering the illusion he had so carefully constructed. The weight of his deception pressed down on him, threatening to suffocate him. Instead of moving, Kelvin made a bold decision. "I'll build a house of my own nearby," he told himself. Quietly, he purchased land adjacent to Samuel's mansion and began construction. He was determined to create his own success, to finally escape the shadow of his lies and build a life based on honesty and integrity. He believed that this was the only way to truly redeem himself, to earn back the trust he had so carelessly squandered. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. Life took a sudden turn when Samuel's mother-in-law passed away. This unexpected loss forced Samuel and his family to cut short their overseas stay and return home. Samuel called Kelvin to share the news. "We'll be back in a month," he said. "Can you arrange a car to pick us up?" Kelvin's heart sank. He couldn't bear the thought of Samuel discovering his deception. He had woven a web of lies too intricate to untangle. Desperation clouded his judgment, and a dark plan began to take shape, a plan fueled by fear and a desperate desire to protect his carefully constructed world. On the day of Samuel's arrival, Kelvin sent a driver to pick up his friend and family. Samuel, trusting Kelvin implicitly, didn't question the man. But as the car veered off the main road, Samuel grew uneasy. "Why are we going this way?" he asked. "This is the fastest route now," the driver replied curtly. Moments later, the car stopped at a desolate roadblock. Before Samuel could react, 6 armed men emerged from the shadows. Shots rang out, shattering the quiet countryside. Samuel and his entire family were gunned down in cold blood. The investigation that followed was swift and merciless, revealing the depths of Kelvin's betrayal. His lies, his jealousy, and his desperation had driven him to orchestrate the murder of the very man who had once saved him. Kelvin's trial was swift. The court sentenced him to death, his name forever stained by betrayal and greed. This, my friends, is a tale as old as time, a cautionary story woven into the fabric of our city. It reminds us that the bonds of brotherhood, however strong, can be shattered by the corrosive forces of envy and deception. It teaches us that trust, once broken, is rarely fully restored. And above all, it implores us to remember that the choices we make, the lies we tell, can have devastating consequences, not only for ourselves but also for those we hold dearest. What do you think of Kelvin's actions? Were they justified given his situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this folktale, be sure to subscribe to our channel and press the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming stories. Until next time, remember to cherish the bonds of friendship and always choose truth over deception.